Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the SMPS Lunchtime Learning Lab program, which will be held every other month. Today's lab is Organizing Your Crazy AEC Life. This is Kevin Doyle with the SMPS headquarters staff. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. On the right side of your screen, you'll see the GoToWebinar sidebar. You can click on the orange arrow to expand or minimize the side panel. There will also be time for live Q&A during this program. Please type your question into the chat box and click Send to submit. CPSMs attending this live program will automatically receive CEUs added to their online transcript. Participants, please feel free to share your aha moments and tweet about the Learning Lab using hashtag SMPS Learning Lab. At the end of today's program, a survey link will be emailed to you. Please take a moment to complete the evaluation survey. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Finally, today's program is being recorded and will be posted in the My SMPS library in the Lunchtime Learning Labs folder. Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce our instructor for today's program, Lindsay Young, MBA, Certified Professional Services Marketer, and Marketing Consultant at New Marketing. Lindsay has been in marketing and business development for over 11 years. She has experience with small and medium-sized design and construction firms and starting marketing departments from the ground up. Her knowledge includes strategic business plans, strategic marketing plans and budgets, business development strategies, employee retention and recruitment strategies, trade show implementation, customer and employee event planning, customer surveys, presentations, social media presence, and project management of branding and website redesign and redevelopment. Lindsay received both her undergraduate and graduate degree in business management from Pittsburgh State University in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Lindsay holds the Certified Professional Services Marketer designation through SMPS. She is currently Chief Difference Maker at New Marketing, a strategic marketing consulting company. Lindsay started to help businesses increase their profits and build their business. Lindsay, welcome to the program, and the audience is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm very excited to give this presentation today, Organizing Your Crazy AEC Life. I gave this presentation last year at a SMPS regional conference and then also for the SMPS Kansas City chapter. So I think this is a great webinar to start out 2018. Maybe one of your goals is to become more organized this year, or maybe you're just looking for some tips and tricks of becoming even more organized. As a marketer or business developer in our industry, you kind of have to have some level of organization. So today we're going to do some online polling. You don't need an app. You can just open on your mobile device, whatever internet browser you have. If you go to mint.com, MENTI.com, and then once we get to those slides, there'll be a code. You'll enter that code, and then it will ask you the questions, and then you'll get to see what others on the webinar are answering too. So again, we'll send these answers out at the end of the webinar so you can see what those are, because there's going to be some good information that we're going to gather throughout today's presentation. So I found this meme as one of my favorites. You don't have to be crazy to work here. We'll train you. And I think this speaks to our industry. We've got a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of plates we're spinning. Many times we're kind of the Lone Ranger in terms of handling all the marketing and business development for the firms that we're working for. We're asked to do some pretty crazy things, but I think that's what makes it fun and exciting too. We have a union here of SMPSers that we probably have some crazy stories. We could probably spend all day talking about some of the funny things that our principals or owners have shared with us. But I digress. So today we're going to talk about organization, what that looks like, managing your supervisor. A lot of you probably thought, well, managing your supervisor, isn't your supervisor supposed to manage you? Well, to some degree, but we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about prioritizing your lists, what those lists look like. Then we're going to talk about some apps and tools for becoming organized, and then some recommendations on time management. So this presentation isn't about work or life balance, although that is important. This is more about productivity and efficiency and creating more time for yourself. So you can have time to do the important and unurgent things on your list. It's always difficult to find more time in the day because we all have the same amount of time. Hopefully some of these things you can also parlay into your personal life, not just your professional life. So being organized, what does that mean? We all could be more organized. I'm included in that group too. We can always strive to be better. But a big piece of being organized is having a plan. Hopefully your firm has a strategic business plan that makes it much easier to write a strategic marketing and business development plan. Now you can write a business or a marketing plan without having a business strategic plan. It's a little more difficult, but that plan is your organization piece. It gives you direction. It's going to give you expectations and goals. So having that plan is your top priority. It might take you some time. It may take you 3 or 4 hours, and hopefully in November or December, you wrote that strategic marketing plan for 2018. So you have an idea of some of the things that you're going to be doing in the new year. So maybe it's opening a new office or trying to branch into a new marketplace in terms of a project type that you're trying to pursue. Maybe you've been doing some clinics, but now you want to do some optometrist or dentist office or those types of things. Within that marketing plan, you're going to know where you need to spend your time. Now that marketing plan is kind of your 10,000-foot view, and then you get all the things that trickle and make those big items happen. So you've got that 12 months, you've got your 12 months, and unfortunately January is almost over. I can't believe it's going to be February on Thursday, but you've got 12 months and you've got to determine where you're going to be focusing your time. You're going to be a lot better off. You've got to also build those relationships within your firm. So if you're new to your company and you're not really sure what you need to be doing or what am I supposed to be doing, where am I supposed to be spending my time, talk to the people within your organization. Get to know those people and what they do and how it relates to marketing and business development. They're going to help you be able to write that plan. If you've been with your firm for a long time, maybe it's checking in with those employees that have an interest in marketing and business development and helping you put that plan together. You can write a plan all day long, but if you don't have your team behind you, that's going to create an additional challenge for you. And that's when we're going to talk about managing your supervisor. Ask lots of questions. I think that's a big piece. Communication is instrumental in being organized and being proactive. If you're fortunate enough to work in a larger firm that has a marketing department or business development department, you're going to have some other people that you can bounce ideas off of and be able to delegate and share responsibility. But I know a lot of firms have, 1 or 2 marketing and business development people. So that, again, is the challenge with being organized. So we've got our first question here. So if you go to menti.com and use the code 622727 and answer the question, do you multitask? I have a feeling there's going to be very few people that say no. Give you a few more minutes to respond here. Oh, we have 2 people that say no. Good. You may not need this webinar then if you're not multitasking. Okay, so this was kind of a loaded question per se. Most of us multitask. I'm guilty of that too. I think at some points in our lives, it's just part of what we do. Your brain can only focus on 2 things at a time. One of them is keeping you alive, so breathing, circulation, your heartbeat, all the things that actually make your body work. That's one thing that your brain is doing. The other thing is whatever your current task is or your current project. You really can't do any more than one thing at a time. Now, there is such thing called task switching. So you've got your internet browser up, your email going, somebody's text messaging you. You may be doing all those things. That's task switching. Your brain actually loses brain cells when you switch constantly back and forth instead of focusing on one thing. The Energy Project audit found that 69% of workers have difficulty focusing on one thing at a time and are easily distracted during the day, especially by email. So I bet most of us have our email box up and we're probably checking email as we're listening to this webinar or we're working on something else. We're not completely focused on what we're doing. It's important to try to focus on one thing at a time and not do multiple things. Multitasking actually lowers your IQ. So I'm going to give you a challenge. Write down what you do in 15 or 30-minute increments to determine what you're spending your time on. This will help you cut out the unnecessary things in your schedule. Social media is part of your job, but if you're like me, you can be easily distracted by that. You can get sucked into the black hole of social media or fill in the blank with something else. You've got to figure out how to be more efficient with your day. That's really what this is about. So like I said, there's going to be some times where you've got to multitask, but if you can minimize that, it will help you tremendously. When you multitask, you actually make more mistakes. So now you're spending more time fixing the mistakes because you were trying to multitask than trying to focus on one thing at a time. So stay focused, be focused. Doing one thing at a time will help you be more effective and productive. By doing this, you will also determine if there are things you're doing that you could delegate to others. So I mentioned write down in 15 or 30-minute increments what you're spending your time doing. I do this on a quarterly basis just to keep myself in check. What am I spending my time doing? So I'll create I just do it on a good old-fashioned, yellow notebook paper or a piece of paper. Write down in 30-minute increments, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. What am I spending my time doing? And then I look at that list and I can determine, okay, are there things that are not getting me towards my goals? So I talked earlier about being organized, having that marketing and business development plan. Are the goals and the expectations and the things that you've written in that plan, are those tasks that you're working on getting you towards that plan, towards that goal? And if they're not, figure out how not to do them, or apparently they need to be on your plan if you should be doing them. It's also been proven that if you work on something for 48 minutes, set a timer on your phone, work on it for 48 minutes, and then take a 12-minute break. There are also some studies that say you can do the same thing for 90 minutes and then take a 20-minute break, focusing on one thing. So if you've got a big project that you need to work on over the next couple of weeks and it's going to take you 12 hours, figure out how to chunk that time out and put it on your calendar. Set it as a calendar, like as an invitation or as a appointment on your calendar. A lot of fitness and nutrition instructors say, plan your workouts. If you're going to work out from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., put it on your calendar. Make it be an appointment. Schedule it. Being organized is no different. If you look at my calendar, I look like I've got all these appointments. Well, a lot of them are just things that I know I need to get done. And if okay, every month I'm supposed to produce a social media report for our ownership so we can justify me spending time on social media. Well, say you run it the last, Friday of the month. Well, set aside an hour, set up an appointment on your Outlook. I'm going to run this social media report and, format it and update it and get the information I need, set it on your calendar if you know that that's part of that, those goals, those expectations. So several years ago when I worked for somebody else, I was hired as their very first marketing director. They'd been in business almost 25 years. And so had written a job description, was working through my goals and expectations that I had set, that we had set together in terms of what I was going to be doing. One of the things that I helped them do was start a customer training program. So helped put that plan together, what it looked like. And then part of that was, printing booklets, and it was, 3 or 4 hour customer training. So there was also some other logistical things that I was spending time on. Well, that wasn't the best and highest use of my time. So what I did was I went back to my schedule of, okay, I wrote down in 30-minute increments what I was spending my time doing. And I pulled the things that, like putting together the manuals, ordering food, setting up the Eventbrite, event to send out the invitation. All those things could be done by a marketing coordinator, marketing assistant level. I needed to spend my time on bigger strategy, planning, client relations, those types of things. So I took those items and created a job description for a marketing assistant and went to my boss and I said, hey, I've consistently been working between 50 and 60 hours a week. And yes, I said consistently 50 or 60 hours a week. You should be working between 40 and 45. And took this job description and I said, I want to hire somebody part-time for 20 hours a week to do these things. You've hired me to do these things on my job description. These other things are important, but somebody else can do them. Not only did he allow me to hire somebody, he actually allowed me to hire somebody full-time because I had brought him the problem, presented a solution, and it was a valid solution. And we moved forward and hired somebody and I got some help. And then I was only working about 45 or 50 hours a week at that time. Now I speak to that because you really shouldn't be working any more than that. Most people, when you are staying focused, concentrating on the things at hand, you can really only do that for about 6 hours a day. Now, if you look at your day, you probably have, maybe you take an extra long lunch to run some errands, or you go to a business development or networking event either early in the day or over lunch or at the end of the day. So really you look at your time and you're probably only spending 5 or 6 hours, working on something or, really thinking through things. Stop getting distracted by things that have nothing to do with your goals. If you've written your marketing plan, you've got those goals and expectations within that plan, you know what those look like, you know where you're supposed to go. So I talked earlier about you've done clinic work, and now you want to do more optometry and dentists and those types of markets. So say a proposal comes in or an ad comes in that is manufacturing. Well, is that a focus? Is that a goal of your marketing, of what you're trying, of who you're trying to go after? It's not. It's the shiny new thing. And as marketers, we get excited about new things, like we love change and the challenge and those types of things, but we also have to realize, what are our goals? What is our plan? And I'm not saying you can't be flexible, because we all have to be flexible. That's just part of life. But maybe that's a 2019 goal. Let's get through what we've got written down and not get distracted by the new shiny thing. It's like Snapchat. Is that make sense? Is that, if your principal comes in, hey, we need to be on Snapchat. Okay, well, time out. Why? Is that our goal? Are our clients on there? I mean, that in itself we can have a whole discussion about. But you've got to stop being distracted by things that have nothing to do with your goals. It's no different than, again, when you're on a trying to lose 10 pounds. It's still early in 2018, so probably some of you are still on the bandwagon of that. And you're committed to losing that 10 pounds and somebody brings in a box of donuts or a platter of cookies. You're getting distracted. If you've written down your goal that, hey, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, in 2 months, so the end of February, okay, that's my goal. I can't eat that donut or have that cookie. So you have to eliminate the distraction. So managing your supervisor. I thought my supervisor managed me. Well, I had a boss who's now a mentor, who is now a client, about 6 years ago, come to me and she goes, I might be your boss, but you really manage me. And so that got me thinking, well, okay, what does that mean? Your manager, your supervisor, your principal should be there to support you in your role and your expertise. And this can be very difficult whether you're new to the industry or whether you're not new to the industry. But you've got to set up expectations and boundaries with your supervisor so you can be more efficient and be able to accomplish the things that you have agreed upon. So if you've put that marketing and business development plan together, share that with them. Let them know, here's my thoughts with how I want to take our company forward in 2018. Are you on board with this? Are you good with this? What additions or corrections do we need to make? Because when you come to me with that new shiny thing, fill in the blank, I want to refocus my efforts and my time. Again, there's going to be some cases where you're going to have to be flexible and that plan will change. But if they're bringing you something new all the time and they're micromanaging your time, I hate to say this, but you might want to find a new job because I think it might not be a good cultural fit. They have to be on board with helping you move forward so you can help them. If your manager is a very off-hands manager, my recommendation and suggestion would be set up weekly progress meetings and let them know what you're working on, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. What do you need from me? What's going on? Here's kind of, what I see going on. You may have weekly office meetings where there's multiple people. I'm talking about your direct supervisor. It also gives you the opportunity to build that relationship and have that open communication.
Hey, Lindsay.
Yes.
Hey, Lindsay, Kevin Doyle here. So sorry to interrupt. Everything's going great. Just for a few moments here and there, I think you pulled away from your microphone. It's clear as a bell right now when you're talking, but there's been a few spots where I think you've turned away from the mic. Can you stay close to it if you're on a speakerphone right now?
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks. Just got that note. Thank you. Keep going, please. Thank you. Very good.
No, thank you. No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. So managing your supervisor can be difficult, but you've got to set up those expectations in the beginning. You've got to set boundaries so there's a clear understanding of what needs to be done versus what can be done later or wait. So if they, you're working on a proposal and they come in and go, oh, we got to update that website content or, fill in the blank, then say, okay, can I work on that next week? Okay. Again, it's that open communication, setting those expectations. So now we're going to talk about some of our lists. Prioritize your to-do list every day. So I talked about the yearly list, which is your marketing plan, your goals for that. So from that yearly list or that plan, you're going to create a monthly list. Then you'll have a weekly list. Then you'll have a today list. And then you'll have a waiting on someone list. So what's the waiting on someone list? So you've put together a proposal and you need some feedback from the project manager. So you've got it and it's in their hands. You want to write that on your waiting on someone list so you know you need to follow up with them because there's going to be some things that you're going to have to do once they get that back to you. So say, for example, your proposal is due February 7th, which is next Wednesday. So you're going to get the draft to the project manager on Monday the 5th. Give them a day to review it, so the 6th by noon. So it's on your list for Tuesday. So again, you can put this on your Outlook calendar as an appointment to follow up with John Smith project manager on this proposal. So then that gives you a day to make those changes, those corrections, and get it printed. Or so work backwards from what you've got going on. If you know you've got some trade shows coming up in April and May, that's usually the spring trade show season, and you've made a goal or made a commitment that you're going to rehaul all of your trade show banners, and you need new promotional products and marketing collateral, all that kind of stuff. Work backwards from that, and then add those tasks to your monthly and weekly list. So you've got to get pricing. So put that as a task on. It's going to take you probably 30 minutes to an hour, depending on who you need to talk to, and put that on your list for each monthly, weekly, daily. You've got to create your own personalized system that works for you. If the system doesn't work for you, then you're not going to use it. We'll talk about some different resources and tools that you can use to keep track and manage your work. So whether you write it down on good old-fashioned pencil and paper or you do it digitally, it really doesn't matter the tools that you use. It just matters that you use them. So for example, this morning I looked at my weekly list. So the 3 things that I needed to get done today, I looked at my weekly list. I've got about 20 different tasks on my list this week. I looked at those. I've got a couple calls that I need to make to clients, and then I needed to practice this presentation this morning. So those were my 3 things on my list that I had to get done today. Now clients are going to call me. I'm going to get some emails that people need some other things done. So you kind of build that firefighting into your day. But I know I've got to get those 3 things done. Then once I get those 3 things done, and if I still have time at the, in the middle of the day, I can revisit my weekly list and take, my next 1 or 2 tasks that I need to get done and work through them. It's writing them down. I think that's the key, or noting them somehow to become organized, to be organized. So I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. Again, it doesn't matter if it's written down, pencil, paper, pen, paper, good old-fashioned notebook, or if it's, an app, something digital, that it doesn't really matter what it is. Again, you just have to use it. And I use both. I have a notebook, and I write the week at the top, and then I have a list of all of my items. I also use an app. There's a screenshot on the left here. It's called Errands, ERRANDS. It's blue with a yellow check mark. I use this thing both personally and professionally, but I can create different folders and different checklists or different tasks. I can email those tasks to people, text it to them. This is a great tool, a great app. I use this app almost every day. Like I said, both personally and professionally. Also, there's a ton of different paper to pen planners that you can use. I did this presentation in Kansas City, and one of the attendees uses Levenger portfolio, and you can customize the planner. They've got all kinds of different pages and formats that you can set up, different sizes. Again, customizing it for what works for you. And then there's various other planners. I Googled yesterday daily planners or business planners, and the Google results were ridiculous. So there's a ton of resources out there to help you. It's just finding the one that works for you. So like most of us, you always have your phone. There's probably not very many times where you don't have your phone. So using apps and digital application software is probably going to be more productive and efficient for you. So there's also an app called Evernote. Some of you may or may not use this. There's a desktop and there's an app. So you can use it both places and it syncs. Also, Outlook reminders and notes. I use my Outlook notes for a lot of different things because I can access it through my phone or my iPad wherever I'm at. So for example, I'll put like logo PMS colors. I wouldn't put any kind of passwords that have financial information like your banking information, but if you have your MailChimp or Constant Contact username and password, then you've got it accessible at your fingertips. There's also several different apps that do passwords. One of them is LastPass, so you don't have to remember all your passwords. Again, there's a ton of different ones. You can go to the App Store and, Password Protector password app, and it's going to pull those up. So you utilize those things that you already have, and that's why I like using Microsoft. I use Microsoft Outlook, so using the reminders and the notes, again, because it syncs with all of my other devices and I have it on my desktop, I can have it all in one place. A couple of project management apps and desktop versions are Slack, Basecamp, and Trello. There's another one called Asana. I personally use Slack. It's free. I can create different channels, in other words, different projects. So I can name different channels for as a project name or a client name, and be able to track everything that has to do with that project so my email doesn't get cluttered up. Then also it allows me to share documents across the team. You can attach images and documents and chat about different things instead of going through your email trying to figure out, oh, well, whose responsibility was it to do that action item, or did I send that to them, or did they send that to me? Did they need feedback? It's all in one place with Slack. Basecamp is another one. I don't use it, but I've been a user of it. One of my web developers uses it. It's great. They can create task lists, different chatting capabilities, share with multiple people, invite teams, similar to Slack. It's $99 per team, so pretty inexpensive. Again, a great way to track information all in one place so it's not in multiple places. Trello is also another project management. It's free. It has an app and a desktop version. You can pay and get some other software and app integration pieces with that. So there's different levels with all of these, but most of them you can get the free version, test it out, see if it's something you want, and then as you grow with it, you can add those additional features. I also use Google Drive a lot. You can save, obviously, Google Docs and Google Sheets. Things are instantly updated as you type into them. You can save it and share it as a view only, or allow other people to edit it. I have one client, they're a very small mechanical contractor. Doesn't make sense for them to invest in a full-fledged customer relationship management system, but the sales position and myself both need to have access to the client list because I'm obviously using it for marketing purposes and he's making calls and he's updating that list. So we created a Google Sheet and he uses that to make his business development calls, and then I can use that when I'm sending out any kind of client notification, email. It's all up to date because it's it's updated there versus saving it and uploading it back to the server or whatever document sharing. I really, really like Google Drive for that reason. And Google Calendars is another place if you work across different companies that use different applications. You're not all on Outlook. Google Calendar is another great place. And again, you could put the app on your phone for that. If you're working with superintendents or project managers that you're wanting to share photos with, set up a folder on your iCloud. If most of you have iPhones, you can share project photos this way so you can update it on social media. You can set up reminders so when somebody adds pictures to that folder, you'll get a notification. Another great tool for you to be able to use. If you're responsible for the social management of your company, there's several different scheduling. Again, it goes back to that focus on doing one thing. So if you can schedule those social media posts and then monitor them, you can be a lot more efficient with your time instead of just over the course of a week or two, making random posts. If there's things that you want to post, if you're trying to do more content marketing and you're blogging once a week, you can schedule those posts ahead of time. If you know there's an event coming up, you can schedule those invitations or those announcements ahead of time. So there's Hootsuite, Sprout Social, Buffer. I know there's several other ones. I use Hootsuite. I'm not in love with it, but it works for what I need it for. There are some limitations. So if anybody has any suggestions on how you can tag things, you can't tag in Hootsuite on LinkedIn. You can tag on Twitter and Facebook on Hootsuite, but not with others. So I'd be curious when we have a question here shortly, any feedback on that. So there's a ton of different applications that you can use. I use voice memos, so if I'm driving, you can also use your text to talk and then send myself an email to be able to do that. So voice memos are great. There's also a couple other apps for passwords, Codebook and Dashline. Dashline not only keeps passwords, but it also is an online receipt management if you have to provide receipts. So what's your favorite productivity tool? So this is where you can type in some of the things that you use. Like I said, it doesn't matter the tool, just make sure you use it. So if you'll enter the code 622727 and tell us what your favorite productivity tool is. So it looks like some of you are already using some of the ones I mentioned, but I think to go back, it's really about setting up that process and setting up that system, communicating, setting expectations, putting it on your calendar. I love sending calendar invites, one of my favorite things. So fantastic. So Outlook is kind of looks like the favorite productivity tool. I think that's just because we all use Outlook, or most of us use Outlook. I know we've got some that don't use Outlook, but that's a good shared resource of places. So we'll send this slide out so you can see some of the other ones that are mentioned on this slide. So now I'm going to give you some recommendations on time management tips. Some of the things that you can do. Do things that are hard or challenging or require critical thinking during your on time. I used to be a night owl and probably 7 years ago converted to a morning person. So my on time is 7 to 10 in the morning. So if I have to do some strategic writing, strategic thinking, those things that really I want to concentrate and focus my time on, I schedule those things during my on time. If it's in the evening, work around that. But figure out when you do the best thinking and do the stuff that's hard during that time. That will help you out a lot. Again, and schedule it on your calendar. Turn off your email notifications. If your phone dings every time you get an email, if it pops up on your window, on your desktop, turn that off. Turn your email notifications off. I know this is going to be surprising to some of you, but nobody's life depends on it, and nobody is going to die if you don't respond to their email or their text immediately. I promise. I promise. There may be some emergencies, I understand that, but 99.999% of the time, somebody can wait an hour or two for you to do that. If you have not read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, I would strongly suggest that you do that. He's got a lot of great time management tips and recommendations in his book. One of the things he talks about is only checking email twice a day. And he actually puts in his email signature, I check my email between 11 and noon and 4 and 5. If you need me outside those windows via email, then call me or send me a text. He's very upfront with when he checks his email. Now, I know that may not be manageable for our industry, but it is okay not to check your email every 5 seconds. And you can actually close out your email, which sounds even crazier, but again, if you're working on something that really you need to focus on, you need to get done, you know, close all your browsers, close all your windows, close your email. You can check your email between tasks. Set up email rules. So if you get your local news, or again, not saying that SMPS information is not important, because it is, or other associations, set up rules, and then you can go and check those at a scheduled time to go through those. It will also help you determine which ones you're really reading and which ones you can unsubscribe from. And it is okay to unsubscribe from emails. Schedule your time. Put it on your calendar. When you're working on a task at hand, if something comes to mind, add it to your list. I know I'll be working on something and something will pop in my head. I turn over to my list and I write that thing down. I don't necessarily do it immediately, but if it's something that's come to mind that I know I need to do, write it on one of your lists. If you have an office, shut your door. Don't do this all the time, but if you're working on something and you need to concentrate, shut the door. A lot of the new office concepts have collaboration rooms. So if this is your office style, you can go into one of those collaboration rooms and work on something for a couple hours. So again, you're not distracted. You're eliminating those distractions from what you're trying to do. If you're in a cubicle, put headphones on. And you don't even have to turn anything on. You can just have the headphones on, and you'll be amazed at how many people think you're watching a webinar or listening to something and won't stop by and talk to you. If it's something that they really need to talk to you about, they're going to come interrupt you, but it's more of a perception that they think you're busy doing something, which you are, but you're trying to eliminate that distraction. So put some headphones on even if you're not listening to anything. If somebody asks you to volunteer to do something, tell them you'll check your schedule and get back to them. You're not saying no, so you don't have to feel guilty about saying no, but more than likely they won't follow up with you after they've asked you. Now, you should make the decision. If you want to help them, then get back with them. But if you don't, provide us another solution or recommendation if you do say no. And with that, say no. It's okay to say no. It's hard at first, but once you do it a few times, it will get easier. So again, say no, but suggest recommend another suggestion or another person. So that also makes it easier to say no. As marketers and business developers, we struggle with this. Work from home for an hour or two if you have the ability to do that. If you can, again, if you've built up that relationship, built up those expectations with your supervisor, you can say, hey, I'm going to work from home for a couple hours because I really need to work on, writing this new website content, and I really just need to have no distractions. Or go to a coffee shop or offsite or somewhere where you can really concentrate on what you're doing. If you have the ability to do that, it will make you more productive. Since working from home, I have actually become more productive because I like to talk to people and I get distracted by people coming by and talking to me. So I'm actually more focused when I work from home because I don't have anybody to talk to. The wall doesn't talk back to me. The window doesn't talk back to me. So by being focused with my time and taking those distractions away, it's not good for me to go to a coffee shop because I'll run into people that I know and then I start talking to them. So find that place where you can really concentrate and take yourself out of the distraction. Create a shared calendar with your employees. If you don't all use Outlook, or if you're in a, working across different firms, if you're a contractor working with other AE firms or vice versa, you may have to use a different application, but you can set up those different calendars to be able to share those calendars. Another thing that I think is very helpful and that I learned early on in my career is create an agenda and action items for every meeting that you run. Start and end on time. I've been to so many meetings where, well, we're going to meet. Okay, well, do you have an agenda? Request an agenda from those people that are managing a meeting. That helps people stay on task. What's the point? What are we doing? Again, gives direction and expectations. But if you run any kind of meeting, you need to create an agenda and action items and who's responsible for each of those action items. It helps you stay focused and be accountable. So put that plan together, know those expectations, put those goals down, write them down. You are 80% more likely to attain a goal that you write down than one that's just in your head. And there is something to be said for a good old-fashioned paper and pencil. There is a connection with your brain when you write things down in your handwriting versus typing them. You remember them more. They're more ingrained in your brain. But write down those goals. Write down those expectations. Communicate those expectations. Being proactive, and that's sometimes hard, I realize, but if you've got that plan, you know what you need to do, schedule those things, and then implement those things that work towards the goals and those expectations that you have. So at this time, I will take any questions.
So sorry about that. Okay, we actually have a bunch of questions just came in. And let me see here. This was earlier on. The person was asking if you could repeat the list of categories that you use.
For lists?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have our yearly list, which is your marketing plan. Then you have your monthly list. Then you have your weekly list. Then you have your daily list. Then you have your waiting on someone list. So your waiting on someone list is, say you've put together a proposal and you're waiting on the project manager to get back to you. That's your waiting on someone list.
Very good. Oh, and I should have prefaced, I'm sorry, friends, a reminder at this time, if you have questions for Lindsay, please enter them into the chat box, which you folks are already doing, but I had to say that there. Let's see here. And we have some questions and some comments. So bear with me here 1 second. Yeah, I'm scrolling to the top here. Okay, here we go. A question. I try to at least email an agenda to my principals since they are often busy during our weekly BD meetings. Is that effective, or should I try to reschedule the in-person update?
I would try to reschedule the in-person update, again, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, if you can get their attention for that long. I have found that when you CC people on meeting minute agendas, meeting minutes or agendas, and they actually aren't there, they don't read them. So if you can just take that, it's sad to say, but if you can summarize and you need some of their time, try to catch them for 5 or 10 minutes and just give them a face-to-face update or ask questions if you need feedback.
Great. Let's keep an eye here. Okay, let's see here. Next question. Any template formats for organizing the monthly list, weekly list, daily list, waiting on someone list? Trying to think of the best way to organize that.
Like I said, I use good old-fashioned pen and paper. My yearly list, AKA my marketing plan, is in a Word document. And so from that, what I will do is I will take my list and look at it from a weekly standpoint. So, you've got 52 weeks, really probably about 48 by the time you take out holidays and vacations and all that. And then, go through that notebook or whatever application. For me, I like good old-fashioned pen and paper. So I carry my notebook around with me, and I'm able to add things to that. But I can also schedule those things out throughout the year.
Excellent. Sounds like the next person has a comment here, something similar or in a similar vein. They say, I color code my lists on my Notepad app, prioritized by deadline and due date. Red is need to do, yellow is coming up, and green is when there is time. A little helpful hint there from somebody out in the field. Oh, the next person, yeah, we were going through those apps. They said, what was that app? What was that called again?
Evernote.
Evernote. Great. Okay, I'm actually making a note of that myself. Evernote. I got to check that out. This is who says we can't use this at SMPS headquarters, right? Next person writes, I love Trello. So everybody check out Trello if you get a chance. We got one big fan out there. Next question. What do you think about the PM tools like Trello and Slack that are available through Microsoft, like SharePoint and OneNote? Do you use Slack in conjunction with Outlook and the Outlook notes you mentioned? I know we kind of touched on some of this, but if we can go through it again, that'd be great.
I actually have a client that uses SharePoint and OneDrive with Microsoft, and I like that because we can do a lot of, again, sharing documents and it's all in one place. But you actually have to be a member of that company, so they had to set up an email account for me where it's not, I don't think, as streamless as Slack or Asana or some of those other ones that you can invite multiple people from different organizations. So again, I think you've got to take it project by project. If it's something internally, you can use OneDrive or SharePoint, but if it's something that's going to require multiple companies or multiple people within different organizations to be involved, you're probably better off using Slack or Asana or Basecamp or Trello or one of those.
Excellent. Hey, Liz, this next person's asking, can you provide us with a list of all the apps that you recommend? What I was thinking was, folks, we're going to be sending out the evaluation, copy of the Lindsay's slide deck as a PDF, and a few other polling questions. Lynn, maybe we can include that list of apps you suggest, just a real simple, Word document, something. Yeah, we'll get that done too. Terrific. And the next person writes in, they actually sent us information. I'll include this as well. It's a website. This is a great overview of many of the social platforms available. And then they give the full email address, which I won't read now because it's a serious URL, but I'll get that out to everybody as well. Somebody asked, earlier you were discussing that book, which I started to write down, but then I got distracted. What's the name of the book you mentioned again earlier? The 10-minute, what's it called again?
It's the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Barrett.
Tim Barrett, 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Barrett. Sorry, I knew it was kind of.
Ferriss.
Yep. Tim Barrett. Yeah, Tim.
I can include that with the list of apps too, because I've got some other book recommendations that have to do with systems and processes and efficiencies. So I'll include those too.
Ah, great stuff. Yeah, Tim's been doing his thing for a long time, so he's great. All right. Okay, let's see here. Interesting question. You seem to have all the answers. What's an example of a learning experience that taught you what not to do when managing your time?
Well, I think it's really setting myself a schedule. I'll be real frank with you guys right now, because we all have lives and we're all human. I am in the process of moving. So my house right now has boxes everywhere. So not only am I trying to work, but I'm trying to pack at the same time. So I have to sometimes remind myself to go through these things when life gets crazy and you have a big project right in the middle of what your normal lifestyle is. And take a deep breath and think, okay, I got to practice what I preach. And I'm a big believer in that. And so again, I have to go back to some of these things like, okay, I got to manage my time. I've got to, write down, I'm feeling overwhelmed, so I need to log my time in 30-minute increments, just like I tell you guys to do. So I do these things, frequently too. So I'm still learning every day doing this stuff too. And I learn something new, even when I give the presentation from you guys. You guys have learned some of this stuff through through the hard knock life too. But I think it's sharing the information with one another. That's what SMPS is about, sharing the knowledge, building those relationships to know, how does somebody else handle this? So I think that answers your question in terms of, am I doing these things? Yes, I do these things, and I struggle with them too. So I have to continually practice them also.
Excellent. Oops. Sorry, 1 second. We had two come in that we already touched on. Any books you would recommend, and then can you recap the lists you keep active? Yeah, you already said, well, we'll get to those. Terrific. Question, next one is, should you check your email first thing when you get to the office?
I do not. I try to work on something that I need to get done, especially something I know from a lot of the times the day before or the night before at 5 o'clock. I look at my list and I say, okay, what do I need to get done for tomorrow? And I look at that, and I try to start with, like this morning, I knew I needed to review this presentation. I didn't even open up my email until after I had went through the presentation to prepare for this presentation, because I didn't want to have any distractions. I knew I needed to get this done this morning. So I did that. And Kevin had sent me an email while I was practicing, and then in between, I responded to him after I was through my practicing.
There you go. All right. I know about this one too. This next question. How do you handle work versus personal calendars? I hate to combine them, but sometimes it seems necessary.
Yeah, for me, I put it all in one. And you can set on your Outlook that you can set a private appointment, so it just shows you busy. It doesn't say, hey, I'm at the doctor, or, my kid has a program, or so you can in Outlook set those appointments that you don't maybe want your coworkers or your supervisor to know where you're at. Not that you don't want them to know where you're at, but there are certain appointments that maybe you don't need everybody in your office to know where you're at particularly. So you can set those up to be private, and it just shows you're busy. So that would be my recommendation, because I don't think you want to try to maintain two calendars. It's just that makes you less efficient and less productive. If you can put it all in one place and use those tools to be able to separate them that way.
Excellent. This one's moving in a different direction, but any tips or tools on developing strategic marketing plan and/or marketing budgets?
Okay, ask me that again.
Oh, sorry. Any tips or tools on developing strategic marketing plan and/or marketing budgets? A little off the beaten path.
Oh my gosh, I have a whole presentation on this. So
we'll get to that one next time. Next time we'll have Lindsay. We'll dial you up for that one for the next Lunchtime Learning Lab. We'll come back to that one. All right, let's keep going here, because there's a few more and we're getting short on time. Which plan do you recommend for PowerPoint presentation to clients when using Mentimeter, Basic or Pro? Getting down to the nitty gritty.
I just use the basic, but if you're going to do a lot, I think you're limited on the number of questions, so it's probably worth the Pro. And I don't think it's terribly expensive. I haven't looked into it, but there's several other like polling. There's several other ones that I've looked at too, and they're all about the same price and do about the same thing. So if you're doing multiple 5-10 questions, you're probably better off doing the Pro version.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see here. What are the best calendar apps or solutions to use instead of Outlook?
I would say Google Calendar is probably the next thing, because it's most versatile. Everybody can access it regardless of what software they use. So you can sync Google Calendar with Outlook.
All right. Here's an interesting one. How do you work last-minute surprise tasks into your daily, weekly plan effectively and recover from that? I've been there.
Well, I think it goes back to looking at your list. Okay, if you've got those 3 things that you've got to get done today, that are deadline driven, you know that you can probably get through those. And then you're always kind of building in those firefighting issues, because things are going to come up. So maybe there's only one thing that you actually have to get done today, like the deadline is today. Okay, work through that one, and then you can go through that weekly, monthly, or that, go back to your weekly list and work through it, unless other firefighting or things have come in the door.
All right. Let's see, interesting question here. In regards to meeting agendas, at what point do you think it is best to provide the agenda? At times, it seems these get lost in the shuffle if sent in advance.
Usually I'll send the agenda the day before, so less than 24 hours before, unless they have a extensive action item list. I have one client, we have a conference call every other week, and it's on a Wednesday. And I typically send their agenda out Monday morning, which sounds kind of crazy, but that gives them 48 hours to look at the action item list that they probably haven't even started working on, and gives them a couple days to get through those things. If there's not a lot of action items, you know, the day before is probably sufficient enough. And then printing off a couple copies is always good and having available at the meeting.
Okay. A couple of things here people already covered. We covered author of the 4-Hour Work Week, list of the apps again. I'm just going through here as fast as I can. SharePoint. There's a sidebar question. This is mine. Will CEUs be automatically accredited for today's program? Yes. Everyone who's in attendance, gang, upload CEUs. That's Kevin Doyle question. Here we go. What motivates you to keep organized and keep tasks written down versus freely working away during the day all throughout the year?
Well,
what motivates you?
Yeah, for me, it's just knowing that I'm going to actually save more time by taking a few extra seconds to make those lists, to write things down, to know what I need to do. And I have a lot of satisfaction from crossing things off my list because it makes me feel accomplished. So I think the combination of those things of it makes me less crazy, it makes me less stressed, and I get, you know, satisfaction from crossing things off my list.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're getting short on time here. I got 2 more questions. I'm going to jump to the end because these are pretty good ones. And then we'll have all these questions, of course. We can get these out to folks. But how, again, did you show proof to your supervisor you could benefit from a marketing coordinator?
Well, it goes back to if you've logged your time and you know you're consistently working 50 or 60 or 70 or, you know, more than that number of hours a week, and noting those types of things that a marketing coordinator or a marketing assistant can do, and you go to your supervisor and say, okay, you've hired me to do these strategic things, and I'm spending my time, you know, assembling booklets for 5 hours a week or whatever those tasks may be. I think showing them that you've thought through what the problem is, you're providing them a solution, and, you know, if they, I shouldn't say give some lame excuse, but give some lame excuse, I think you also need to be able to question them on, okay, well then, is there some things that we can just eliminate or figure out a different way to do, or maybe it's outsourcing those things where you can be more flexible with that person's time. There may be some specific projects that you can outsource to somebody. There's a ton of different outsourcing sources that you can take advantage of. And sometimes, I hate to say this, and I said this in the presentation, it's a company culture thing, and that may not be the place for you if they don't realize the value that you're bringing and the skill set that you have to try to find somebody else to do some of those, you know, menial tasks.
Excellent. I know we're over, gang, but I'm going to ask this one last question, then we're going to wrap up. What is the best way to handle other staff members who cannot meet your deadlines? More specifically, project managers who can't meet RFQ deadlines. Good question.
Mm-hmm. That is a great question. If you can figure that out, let me know, because I'm challenged with that too.
Good answer.
I think it also is, how can I help you? How can I help you with this? Do we need to set up a time, one-on-one in a conference room where I've got your full attention? Make it about them and figure out how you can help them. One of the things that I do with clients, they go, well, we want to do content marketing. I'm like, okay, well, that's great, but I've got to have content to be able to write. Well, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an architect. I'm not the technical expert. I know enough to be dangerous, but I've got to have some of that information. How about I sit down and I interview you and we can write the blog together? And then I got a commitment. So then we get that goal accomplished. I mean, so figure out how you can ask them how you can help them.
Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, that's going to be it then. Lindsay, any additional comments before we wrap today's session up?
I know somebody had mentioned strategic marketing plans and resources. I have a blog that I consistently update. You can also sign up for my newsletter, which is, just pushing the blog to you, talking about strategic marketing and business development, tips and tricks, and all kinds of stuff. So some of that information about strategic marketing plans is on my blog. All of my old blogs are on there too. So there's a couple on marketing budgets and those kinds of things. So feel free to go sign up for that so you can get that in your inbox.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well then, on behalf of SMPS, thank you to our presenter, Lindsay Young, and all of today's participants. Please join us for our next SMPS Lunchtime Learning Lab on March 13th with Megan Miller of Deltec. Thank you. This program has ended. You may now disconnect.